host, Mitchell J. Rabin, and I'm very glad you're joining us again today. Today we are on location on 5th Avenue and 20th Street at the office of Arthur Jaffe, who does a kind of bodywork technique, which is a form of neuromuscular therapy. It's called spiral technique, and he's been doing this for many years, and actually he's taught and done this in different parts across the world. And he's quite renowned for this work, which is why we wanted to interview him, so you can all get a sense of the kind of therapeutic modality using deep tissue bodywork that is available right here in the Big Apple. I've had some work done by Art, and well, highly recommend it, because he helped to loosen up parts of my body that were otherwise just immovable, essentially, virtually immovable. And from a background in music as a rock and roll singer, he has been moving right along in his life to doing this kind of work and really trying to spread the word about it as best as possible and let as many people as possible know about its value. So, hey, Art.
Hey, Mitchell. Thanks
Great
for
to
having
have
me.
you. My pleasure, my pleasure. So what is it that got you excited about? There's so many different techniques. What is it about this particular one that got you impassioned?
A friend of mine came back from, he had broken his neck, and for 2 years he couldn't move his head. And the doctors were telling him that he had to have his spine fused or he could become a paraplegic at any moment. They were terrifying him. And he said, "You're not turning me into Frankenstein." And he went to this healing symposium set up by Yogi Bhajan, who brought Kundalini Yoga to the United States. And there was
4-H community?
the 3HO, yeah.
3H.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
4-H is like Girl Scouts. But
That's right. Okay. Well, this is not
this
exactly
is,
that.
It's a beautiful thing, though.
Yeah.
So he came back from that event, and he met a man named Mark Lamb there. And Mark said to him, "Your neck's not paralyzed." He said, "It's frozen from the trauma, and you're afraid of what's going to happen if you move it, and it's in a lot of pain." And he started doing this work with him, this particular movement and energy. And Dial came back from there, and he walks into my office, and he goes, "Look." And he starts twisting his head. He says, "I'm bringing this guy out here. You got to experience his work."
Now, how much time elapsed between the accident, Art, and his getting that treatment? Or he was in that stagnation?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Of virtually no movement of his neck, thinking that he was paralyzed.
Right. Right. And then for 7 years, first of all, Dial Singh Khalsa started working with Mark, and he learned from him, and then they discovered a bunch of things together. And then after 7 years, Dial convinced Mark to teach a class, and I was in that first class.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
So this was something that Mark himself designed.
Well,
as an approach.
Mark designed. He had actually learned the initial work from an old physician named Nate Schulman out in California, and then he combined it with work using Eastern medical technology combined with Qi. And me having a background in, my father taught hand-to-hand combat and karate and jiu-jitsu in the Marines during World War II. That was one of the things he did. And so from when I was very young, I learned how to maim and kill, how to use Qi to maim and kill.
You did?
I did.
Oh.
But what I learned from Mark was using Qi.
Is this your good side?
Yeah, well, it's my kinder side, my gentler side. Thousand lights.
The left,
The
yin.
thousand light side, yeah. So what I learned from Mark was, first he worked with me at that point, and I had chronic pain in my back that was so much ameliorated. Within a few minutes I knew, because I had been traveling the world studying body work.
Oh.
And within a few minutes I knew this is what I was looking for.
Wow.
And so between what he and Dial taught, and then they parted ways, and so I studied with Dial, I studied with Mark, and I had studied with Qigong masters, and kind of created my own style of this work.
I got it.
And so I've been doing that here now in New York since '95, and it's been exciting. It's very interesting work. I get tremendous results from people on all kinds of scales, because it's whole self reintegrative. It's not just body work, but it gets rid of places where people have suffered injury, whether it be psychological, emotional, or physical. In the case of physical injury always has an emotional content.
Well, interestingly, we met because you attended the total biology classes and workshops that I had been sponsoring as A Better World over the course of a few years.
That's right.
And which is, of course, a totally integrated system of understanding the psycho-emotional conflicts behind physical illness and trauma. So
Right, and
that showed me from the beginning that you were a kind of body worker that was tuned into the psyche component of physical ailments.
you know, there are some that say that it's all emotional, that the injuries to the body are created by the emotional standpoint or perspective, and that's why it manifests in those ways. So
Exactly.
I don't necessarily prescribe to that 100%, but there is an emotional component in people's illnesses
Sure.
that I get the opportunity to recognize often.
Now, still and all, the technique sounds like and even feels like similar things that I have received from Tui Na and other deep tissue rolfing. I've been rolfed. I've gone through several different modalities. How would you describe what difference there is in your thinking and what the purpose behind it is distinct from these other, contradistinct?
Well, although people mostly come to me because of pain in their bodies, sometimes they come from stress or emotional pain. And basically this work is about reintegrating the whole person to get them totally functional so that they can again start to realize their potential, to give them back the ability, the can-do, the confidence.
Yes.
And so functionality on all levels. So with Tui Na and other types of work, it's not necessarily that, and with rolfing as well. But this work, for instance, rolfing, they do one section of the body at one time, and then you go for 12 different sections and sessions.
Yes.
And we do the whole body at one time because we deal with the body as
So
one person.
Every session is all body inclusive?
Yeah, we'll at least cover your body and then give special attention where your body is and where it's warranted.
Area.
Yeah, where it's calling out.
Interesting. I know, because when I went through rolfing, you know, there would be one area that, you know, everything else was okay, but that one area got worked, you know. Oh, that's an interesting distinction.
And it won't be long before I'm teaching organized classes, I'm sure, as well, with this, because it is eminently teachable work.
But when it comes to the tissue itself, Art, how would you say, is there a difference between what you're doing? I understand the approach, so you're going to make sure the whole body gets addressed. That's a very interesting distinction.
Yeah, there's a difference.
When it gets down to you as practitioner meeting the tissue.
Right.
Hello.
Exactly.
So good to meet you. What's going on there in that interface?
You're using person's bringing a complaint to you, or you can actually feel where there's blockage and holding in a person's body. There's stiffness, there's pain, there's lack of function, there may be numbness, and
lack of circulation.
Absolutely, from muscles in spasm that causes lack of circulation all the way down the line.
Sure.
So what you're using actually is integrating the use of qi, which gives you a deep penetration into the tissues, and the use of a spiral unwinding movement. And the difference between this and other movements is that a spiral goes in all directions.
Yes.
And all movement in the universe is also basically in a spiral. And so your tissues recognize that, they resonate with it, and they unravel, just like if you were trying to untie a knot of yarn, a ball of yarn, you have to unwind it in all directions. If you're just trying to do this, it's never going to come out.
So you are according with the cosmos when you do this. Your movement of the elbow is a spiraling one.
Right, but it's not actually the elbow. It's actually the end of the forearm near the elbow.
Oh.
And that's part of the movement. It's absolutely necessary to be able to use the blade of the ulnar bone rather than the elbow in order to have that unwinding movement, that spiral.
I got it. Okay.
And there's a good deal more to it, but essentially it emanates from that movement.
I got it. So in a sense, you're meeting the depth of the trauma at the deepest level of tissue and almost coaxing it through a spiral movement up and out and through.
Well, I wouldn't. It's close. I wouldn't exactly say that. What you're doing is you're going as deep as the tissues are ready to let you, without resistance. Where you meet resistance, that's what the person's ready for.
Right. I mean,
and then the unwinding technique mixed with the chi is actually emanating in, and the spiral is opening away from you. It's traveling through, and it's penetrating deeper and opening in those directions that are blocked. It's not opening this way up and out. It's through.
Oh.
And that's what they teach
But
you.
won't it then go to and through bone at that point if it's going in that direction?
It depends on how you're looking at this energy, but no. No, you're really
going
focused
down
on, if you have a spasm, for instance, and you're focused on that spasm, and you want to unravel that spasm, that's what's going to unravel. Your intention, the chi, traveling in there, and the movement will get it to unravel at a quicker rate than any other form of body work that I've ever seen.
I see.
Because it has that potentiality of opening in all directions. And the only issue with bone would be if you were using so much power, which I definitely don't
do and recommend.
I don't recommend it. Yeah.
So give us these last few minutes, because now we're going to get into your demonstrating it on moi, which I always welcome, by the way. And that way people can see hands-on, no pun intended, but it really is and looks like. And I'll report on what it feels like. What kind of results have you seen, and for what kind of human conditions?
Well,
arthritis?
I've seen all kinds of results. Arthritis is a simple term that means inflammation of the joint.
Totally.
When people come in and they say, I have this, I have that, I think in terms of what they're saying is they got diagnosed with it. It's a snapshot in time. Arthritis, because they say I have arthritis, they think that that's something, that they have a death sentence with this. Sure. It's going to last for the rest of their life.
Degenerative thing, and there's nothing you can do about it.
But all it means is inflammation of the joint. Yeah. So in many, many cases where people say they have arthritis, it clears up and goes away.
Interesting.
And I've seen all kinds of. It helps really every pathology, because what you're doing is you're helping integrate a person's whole being again, letting their energy flow better. There's much less resistance in their whole bodies. You detoxify their tissues. They're not dealing with such toxicity.
There's calcification, toxicity, lack of circulation, lack of oxygen.
Amen. Absolutely.
To name a few.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So this works.
So Parkinson's, arthritis, osteoporosis,
MS.
You've seen results, huh?
Oh yeah, really good results. And then regular stuff, lack of mobility, pain and tension, anxiety. People feel lighter, they feel free. That's what this work's about. It's about freedom.
Freedom. It's about liberation.
You could say that.
You're really a closet
on many
Buddhist,
levels.
I think.
There's not too much closet there. But actually what it is at this work is that I take what I like and I inculcate it into my life, and then I spread it. So when people come to me, I'll teach them oftentimes breath work that balances the nervous system and keeps it free. And I'll teach them exercises that will help them to stay strong and free. I'll teach them stretches that will do that. My job is to get people functional, give them the tools to stay that way.
Exactly. So this becomes kind of a doorway, a portal to a healthier, more integrated life. Exactly. Beautiful.
It's a pleasure to do this work.
Yeah. No, I see it in you for years now, and it's delightful. Well, I'd love to.
All right, let's see what we can do here.
And
why don't we
show
just
you all what it's
leave
like.
you on that chair, actually.
Okay.
This is it's a remake of the ancient posture seats from the 70s.
Oh.
Let's bring this forward just a little tiny bit. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to use this cloth.
If you want to know, Doc, it's my left shoulder and neck, side of neck, that of all things.
Okay, we'll go there in a
ails.
moment. I want you to lean back against my hip. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm sinking my center of gravity down. And I'm taking my body and your tissues with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really, it's not
With
my
your
arm
body.
that I'm really using.
You're using your whole body.
Yeah. And in doing that, I'm moving my chi, and I'm using my contact place to integrate with your tissues here.
Which isn't your elbow, but it's just
below.
Oh,
Yes.
well, it depends on what direction, right?
So this is not to be tried at home, kids, without real instruction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I can feel the tissues have been tight here, and I can feel them starting to loosen up, give in, and they resonate with the movement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, because of its spiraling nature, the movement is so natural. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel pressed. You know, sometimes in the Tuina, I don't seem to understand the natural ebb and flow of the body, in my experience. Not that it can't happen, but this is
Tuina is
an
pretty
elevated understanding of the way things work in the universe. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
Just lean back, let your body relax so that you're not holding your hips.
Oh, sure.
So the more you let go and just rest on me, if you engage your muscles, then I'm not going to get into them. So
Right,
if you
I
let
see.
them just rest, we will. Let me have this hand. Now let your elbow fall. All right, so this area has been so used. Hold your head up and let it be straight again.
Okay.
Relax it though, so that you know you were leaning sideways to open up for me. But I really don't want you to do anything.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
This area has been so stressed for so long that
Yeah.
it's holding rigidly in spasm. Let yourself go. Put your feet flat and just rest back. That's the way.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put your arm in motion, you can't hold it stiff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually doing my work while I'm moving you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, you let me in.
Oh, yes. I got it. What are you encountering? How would you describe that?
Tight muscles in spasm.
In spasm?
To some degree.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Whole muscles don't go into spasm. There are neuromuscular junctions that operate portions of the muscles called fascicles. So some will be in spasm while others will be loose. We don't really want to be that way. We want to be toned, but we don't want to be too tight. When that happens, the muscle becomes exhausted. And when the muscle becomes exhausted, it starts working anaerobically, and it's burning glycerin, and that creates acidity. It creates lactic acid, pyruvic acid. Those build up in the cells, and they build up in the tissues, and those create knots. And the knots then pinch on nerve endings, causing pain and dysfunction and creating more spasm. So what we're doing here is kind of, that's a cycle of pain.
That's a downward cycle.
Right. So we're throwing in a circuit breaker here
Yeah.
and taking the muscle out of spasm. At the same time, we're bringing circulation, which will clear that acidity out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Sure
let this
feels
down.
like- Yeah.
Okay.
That's
I'm going to
good.
come around and try a little bit something different there.
Yeah. That whole muscular area feels like it's welcoming that experience.
Well, circulation is returning. The looseness is
Yeah.
returning.
Right, exactly.
Now I want you to just rest your head forward and let it rest on me. And then let your body just relax. Now I'm going to go in and work this from a different angle.
Oh, yes.
And let your body turn, let your hips go. Let your back fall. That's the way. So that way you're not using your muscles to hold yourself up.
Right.
There. Now you feel the difference when you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
then we
yeah.
get in.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah.
So I can feel how these have been holding like
Yeah.
cords.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're getting in there now.
All right, take a deep, deep, full breath and hold it. Okay. Okay, and drop it out. Okay, try another. Now just drop it fast. Good. So now I'm actually using the blade of my hand
Mm-hmm.
with your neck.
Mm-hmm.
Because the forearm can generate with the chi so much power
Mm-hmm.
that
Wow.
it's better and it's more precise to use the blade of the hand and the pinky.
Yes.
And even though it's just the pinky, when you're using the chi,
yeah.
when you're coming from your center, it can be very, very potent, very powerful.
Sure.
And also, this stuff, I imagine, feels quite deep.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
So that's also using the chi, using my center.
So do you feel that your training that you received from your father
Helped you to do this work?
It helped me tremendously. Because when Mark and DL started to show about using the chi, I had a long, long history of using it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been using it actually in my own work. Before I even knew what medical Qigong was, I was doing it
Mm-hmm.
because it felt
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Right. That makes it very real. So from that point of view, do you encourage your students to do Qigong or Tai Chi Chuan as a part of training?
I think that medical Qigong is very, very interesting. And I would encourage people to study Qigong for their own help, their own health,
Definitely.
and medical Qigong for practitioners. And martial arts of different forms are useful too.
Mhm.
Learning to channel different martial arts are really
Mhm.
good, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Some are better than others for learning to heal.
Uh-huh. Like what?
Like Aikido is a really good form.
Yes.
It also has aspects of meditation to it.
Definitely. It's a soft art.
Yeah,
I know I studied it many years ago, along with Tai Chi Chuan.
yeah. So Qigong is really wonderful work. And
Yep.
this is, let's see how you feel.
Oh, fabulous.
I had some, yeah?
Yeah, oh yeah, really good.
I had somebody in this chair the other day and I worked with her. And when I stood up and away from her, she went like this. She was holding her head on because she had so much tension in her neck and shoulders that she thought her head was floating away. And the first time I had that experience also, when somebody worked on-
Really?
yeah. I thought my head, I felt so silly, but I actually reached up to make sure.
That's so funny. You know, there's that great book from the Dutch writer on Zen, something like living without a head. You know, I lost my
on
head.
having no head or
On
something?
having no head, right? Something like that. It's, wow.
Does
yeah.
your head feel lighter?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I dropped more into my body
Uh-huh.
from that.
That's another thing about the work.
Yeah.
It really puts people back in their bodies.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
where they're living.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And this whole area, which is almost always pretty tight,
Nagging.
always looking for some attention, feels a lot better.
Well, he could use some more. He could use a full treatment.
Yes,
So we'll
right.
have to get you in here.
All right, fine,
Yeah.
sure. I know you did a miracle for me last time I was here. You know,
Thank you.
yeah, truly, you really helped loosen it up. Ah, that's great. Just to answer this, if you would, the whole idea of symmetry, because the body is bilateral.
That's why we work the whole body
Yes.
in each session. Because it is the whole body. You are a whole being, and you know this is where your spirit lives.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
And
This
so
is the temple.
we're sweeping out the temple and we're keeping
Yeah.
the wheels greased, you know.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like that.
And so, practically speaking, or when you're working, for instance, let's say that my
That's why I
issue is
started with this
primarily-
side.
Exactly.
Yeah, I let your body feel what it was like to have the movement and familiarize
It's like
itself.
the
and
initiation, if you
and
will.
then, yeah. And so it got nice, it felt safe, and then you
Yes.
open to the other side.
And you work around. It's like when
And the other
native-
side, it's more armored up.
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like when native peoples, it's reminding me of this idea, need to cut down a tree, they actually start around the other trees, around the one they want to get to cut down. So they're sort of like warming up the energy toward going toward,
Right.
you know,
That's
just
that's what we were
go
doing.
right in, you
Right.
know, so
And
yeah.
the sessions are like that too, because it's really vitally important that people feel safe more than anything else. So this
Yeah.
work is clothing on. We use towels, you know, we use protection.
Uh-huh.
And that way people can really get rid of deep stuff that's really been bothering them. Because when the subconscious, when those traumas happen, the body locks it in.
Exactly.
And then those,
in the
they run you.
musculature.
They create syndromes. And those syndromes run you, and they're unconscious, usually unconscious.
Exactly. So you're helping, we're just about out of time when we've hit upon such a big subject, but you have seen that the trauma gets released over time? When
It gets released sometimes in an instant. It's so much is just ready to go. When a person comes for a first session,
Yeah.
they usually have,
they are ready,
Right.
they're primed.
and the stuff leaves, the trauma leaves. It doesn't necessarily come to consciousness. I think it only comes to consciousness when their higher self says, you need to know this. You need to know why this was going on with you.
Exactly.
On the other stuff, they just let it go and it just comes out.
Right. It's just garbage going into the waste paper basket.
Yeah,
you know.
well put. Right.
Listen, this has been beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to have you, and this is beautiful work. I want to really support you and letting people know more and more about the work you're doing.
All right. This work needs to be spread.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
it's easy, it's simple, and it's very, very effective in a million ways.
Exactly. Give your website, although we'll put it on as well.
Okay, so
And your phone number. if
it's
you want.
spiraltechniques.com, and phone number is 646-644-0990. Thanks for watching.
That's beautiful.
Okay.
Thanks again, my friend.
All right, thanks for doing this. This would be
Absolutely.
interesting to get this
Absolutely.
footage.
Sure. This
Good,
is
good.
Mitchell J. Rabin for A Better World. Thanks so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that. Well, you'll enjoy it as much as I did when you come and experience it. That's the story. Love to get your comments. Please write to me at mjr@abetterworld.net. Visit our website, www.abetterworld.net, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.